Picks and bans for game number 3 here. Dignitas have the first selection. Of course, the first ban. So we've seen a lot of Xbalanque bans. We've seen a lot of Arthur bans. I think we can continue to see the Arthur bans. And after last game, I think we should continue to see the Xbalanque ban as well.
Dignitas can go right back to what they did in game number 1. In fact, taking away the Xbalanque, the Bologna. We saw Discordia and Hera bans, though, from Dig in their 3rd and 4th banning phase. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe Dignitas might be starting to take a gander towards that Jormungandr there, because game 1, we've already talked about it. It didn't really seem to have that same sort of impact. But game 2, hard to ignore the Jorm by that point.
And I always preach the idea of banning out play styles, right? You don't want to ban away a mage unless it's somebody's best character. You know, you want to ban away not Vulcan, but long-range ultimates. You want to ban away not Upwash, but area denial. And when it comes to Jormungandr, his ability to dive that backline is unsurpassed, and it's unmatchable. So by banning out one character, you can kind of ban out that mentality, and Dignitas are going to do just that. They ban out the Xbalanque and the Jormungandr, a very potent combo that Pittsburgh Knights was able to arguably win the game off of last time around. So the Knights on the clock here. The King already banned out, likely to be a Merlin ban, and we'll see where Dignitas look to pick their first character.
Possibility, though, for the Bologna ban to take place as well.
I almost would rather see that.
Pittsburgh Knights, I think, have a tough time here, because if you leave the Merlin open, Dignitas is going to snatch that up for Hurriwind in a heartbeat. But leaving the Bologna open, Dignitas now could maybe even look to continue holding that pick for Variety. It's not like Variety had a poor performance or anything like that. He did a slam dunk of a job on that Bologna for, you know, the vast majority of that match. And not only that, but keeping that pick away from Deathwalker, I think, is always going to be a good look for Dig. And if I'm Pittsburgh Knights, you know, maybe looking to respond with something like Terra Bologna, since they opted for the Fafnir for Dig.
Well, now the Fafnir's here selected. I almost, you know, Achilles Bologna at the same damn time wouldn't be a bad look. You can always put one of them in the jungle. Pittsburgh Knights still on the clock. EmilZy trying to figure it out here. The support certainly racking that brain.
He's tired of the Fafnir, man.
Yeah, it's
like, get this pick away from me, dude. I'm so tired. Why does Trixtank get to play Fafnir every single game
and it looks
never
great.
me?
And it looks great too. Just watching the game, watching him get these long range stuns. I mean, in that early game in the middle lane, really impressive. Very, very smart. Pittsburgh Knights here, hovering of the Achilles. They will lock in the golden-haired beauty.
It's hard to not want that.
He's great.
It's just also, it's still mildly ambiguous. We've seen Deathwalker now piloted 2 games in a row, but what's to stop Pittsburgh Knights from potentially switching it up, giving Achilles to maybe even adapting, or EmilZy? We've seen a lot of, I think, aggression from the supports in this match so far, and I love this too from EmilZy, because it feels like EmilZy is almost adapting, no pun intended, by the way, to Trixtank style of play, because Trixtank has kind of been known, I think, for being one of the more aggressive supports of competitive play, and I do think that EmilZy has definitely stepped it up. That Bacchus gameplay in Game 2, at least, was definitely strong.
Serket chosen here by Pittsburgh Knights. Achilles and Serket, ambiguous as all hell. Serket can play 3 positions. She's one in the jungle, she's one in the solo lane, and she's one in the support role. Achilles, certainly one that can do all 3 as well. Dignitas. They're going to pair that Fafnir Coerce up with a Chronos and an Amusing Cob, what we saw earlier in game number 1. This won them the game. We saw EMC in the mid lane and Chronos in the hands of Ataraxia. Dignitas likely to do that one more time, and Pittsburgh Knights going for the Hebo.
This is smart, though, because whether it's going to be for Zyrhoes or adapting, that's still, you know, a story yet to be told. But I love seeing the Hubwap pick in that 3rd slot over the Jormungandr even for Pittsburgh Knights, because you need some kind of burst to have any sort of chance of bringing down this Chronos, Amus, and Cobb. Game 1, things just fell a little bit short off of one missed team fight at like past the 40-minute mark. But I just think that there's no other way for Pittsburgh Knights to really respond other than with such a heavy burst mage.
Certainly one that can deal with Chronos before Rewind comes out. So we'll see if this winds up in the hand of adapting, how he changes and what he does. If it winds up in the hands of Zyrhoes, how he changes and what he does. Round 2 bans coming out. No Terra, no Ratatasker, says Pittsburgh Knights. Dignitas have already banned out Giannis for the mid lane. That's certainly a nice mage that Zyrhoes likes to play and adapts well with what Serket can do. And the secondary ban for Dignitas will be that Hera So all 4 bans done now, and Pittsburgh Knights on the clock.
The only thing it appears is that Dignitas doesn't really seem to believe that that Havois is going to be intended for Zyrhoes.
Yeah.
Looking more likely that it's going to be adapting on this Havois, but still, Dignitas have a couple of issues of their own, I think. In Game 1, we had some concerns over these first 3 picks because it was the lacking of hard crowd control that might come back to nip Dignitas in the bud if they're not careful. But I also don't necessarily want to see Qvofred run back the Humbots. I like the control aspect involved with the Fear No Evil, but Game 1 just felt a little bit too close for Dignitas to really want to toy with that again. Maybe something like a Robin really allow Qvo to dive into that back line.
See, I didn't mind the Hunbats. I took issue with the Camizots. Even on reflection, Camizots deal with Hebo rather well. I don't know.
Imagine Kama and Robin together.
Dive. Camazot certainly will come out. Meatloaf's favorite character. You know, I'd do a lot of things for a win, but I wouldn't do that.
So Camizots, I really don't even know how to respond to that. If I'm being completely honest with you,
was that not?
It was just so over my head.
Oh my goodness.
I can't even begin to explain it to you.
I bet the production boys.
Someone out there is bound to appreciate whatever it is you just said. I could not tell you what it was, though.
So Meatloaf is a famous opera rock singer type guy. You're
talking about from Adult Swim?
No, maybe? I don't know. He had an album called Bat Out of Hell. That's the reference to the ultimate.
Not the direction my brain was going.
Oh my god.
I'll be real with you, Chief.
Oof. Well, now that we've dated ourselves, we'll go ahead and pick up the Dog Man. Arlong Shen will be a choice for Team Dignitas. Camizots and Arlong can switch between the short side of the jungle.
Big thing to keep an eye out here for this Arlong is just going to be that knock-up. I really am curious to see how Dignitas plan on working around this Arlong Shen's transformation, because if there are sufficient knock-ups with the turtle, there is so much. Dignitas just need that brief second. We saw how fast they could collapse Pittsburgh Knights in Game 1. They just need a split second of a slip-up from Pittsburgh Knights or a really strong turtle knockup, and they can definitely smother and execute.
Knockup, stinger, time rift, dead. That's what you see out of this Team Dignitas comp. They do have a ton of bursts, and they also have some sustained DPS by way of the Kronos and the EmilZy and the Fafnir as well. So I like what Dignitas have brought to the table. Pittsburgh Knights bring the Hebo, and Dignitas have a number of answers to it. But the Nuwa is also a character that can get away from a lot of the sustained DPS. Camizots goes in the ultimate, Kronos activates his accelerate, and Nuwa goes to the moon. So, a nice exit button there for the Pittsburgh Knights.
Also, Nuwa, one of the only mages left, I think, that has that invis opportunity for Zyrhoes, so you know he's got to take it.
It's all stealth here for Zyrhoes. We'll see if he can make himself front and center for Pittsburgh Knights. Tied up here at 1. We're jumping into game number 3. Finch and Aggro, give us the action.
Well, this set has not disappointed so far.
No.
And judging by these picks and bans, I don't expect it to start disappointing me now. Interesting draft for PK. Where are you seeing all this stuff going?
It's a lot of global ults, and I think it's
Yes.
going to be very similar to what they had in Game 1, where it's going to be Circuit support, Hebo jungle, Achilles solo. You put Nuwa in mid, though I wouldn't be too surprised, I guess, if they went Chernobog mid, Nuwa ADC.
Sure.
Kind of a la that old energy composition that they used to run a lot of. I wouldn't mind that, but I don't know. I think Nuwa in mid is a little... No, actually, with the way that they're playing right now and they're putting ADCs by themselves, I think Nuwa ADC might be better.
It could certainly be good to go over there and get some of that farm, right, and not have the mage be so far behind. But that won't be the play. Everything went how you thought initially, adapting back on this Havois in the jungle, and that to me is a point worth focusing on, because in Game 1, he had a very slow build to start things off. Seems as if that will be the plan here again, based on this starting the build. He had a couple of engagements that seemed like maybe he was on a different page than the rest of his team, but the Knights are ready to go back to this again and try it.
Yeah, this time he goes Beads instead of Blink, and that's against Arlong Shen instead of Hunbats, but very, very similar in terms of CC potential in the early stages. I agree. I still don't like the Book of Thoth in the jungle early on. If you're planning on bringing it to 48 minutes, number one, I wish they would have told us before we started. I would have grabbed a bigger snack. Number two, it could work for you, but it really does mean this Arlong Shen is much more aggressive in the early game than the Hun Bats. And I wonder if Dignitas is going to try and ramp up that early game pressure that they might be bringing early on in this game.
That might be the idea from them, but I like that Ataraxia has this Chronos over there in the dual lane. We keep talking about it. If they really are just going to leave you alone over there, like all game long for 18 minutes until you're done.
Yeah.
It's hard to do better than Chronos.
I agree. That's why I think Nuwa could have done it.
Right.
Problem is Chronos can kind of run you down. Blink in from EmilZy. He's going to try and steal away this blue buff. This should be able to be secured with good communication, and it was not.
Yeah, EmilZy takes that one away with the Deathbane, and now he'll walk away as they don't quite have the lockdown to stop him at this point. The supports, yet again, over here in this solo lane, slowing down some of the solo farm and harassing each other around these blue buffs. And this time, like we saw in Game 1 when EmilZy was on the Circuit, it's in their favor, at least these early blue buffs.
Variety, because he's decided to start in wave and clear the wave at level 1 instead of where Deathwalker and EmilZy both started at their own blue that time to ensure that it was going to go their way. If Variety starts at blue, then it certainly is in Dignitas' favor, but bit of a missed opportunity, I would say, with how they played that early game. Just a little bit off on what I think was the correct option, which is starting at the blue buff. The only time that punishes you is if EmilZy's standing in front of you and just forcing you to 50-50 the buff. But if you're starting at blue, then you don't start your Screech, you start your Vampire Bats. And Vampire Bats plus Hammer is going to outsecure Deathbane every time. It's just a matter of communication on when you're going to do it. I think that's the way that Dignitas likely should have gone with that engagement.
I talked about the thread that I liked in this game that's compared to Game 1. Another one that I'm a fan of here is how is Adapting going to be able to keep up just in terms of farm with Qvofred. That in bots was so far ahead for them last time, and it stifled their gank attempts. I think that's part of what put them behind so much, that they had a couple of attempts to get some kills, and they weren't able to find them. This time, you know, with the Erlong Shen instead of the in bots, it feels like that's less disruption without the Fear No Evil there. So they should be able to maybe succeed in a few more of those games.
That's the idea, is that you can end up getting a little bit more off. But remember, in the early game, like pre-5, Hun Bats is not doing a whole lot.
Yeah, it's true.
Erlong Shen is doing quite a bit pre-5. Ataraxia actually ends up getting soloed here in the dual lane. The dash in from Vote and had the cooldowns ready. That could be the opening that Pittsburgh Knights has not had an opportunity to get. If they're getting consistent pressure on solo side and Vote ends up getting ahead in duo, that could be huge for them.
And that was the only timing when that window truly works, right? Because it's right before Ataraxia has the rewind to undo all that damage or any positional mistakes. So Vote capitalizing very well there by finding that kill. Now, as you said, the question becomes, is it enough? Is he able to get more pressure? Is he able to put Ataraxia a couple of levels behind over here? And is there any potential for maybe even Adapting showing up and trying to bully this Chronos?
Still has beads though, so it's not like you have a huge window without purification beads, though again, I don't know how much purification beads really help him in that gank scenario. Aegis is really what you need more often than not. It's the Circuit threat that makes you get purification beads, more so than the Habwa. And now that Ataraxia has boots, he's going to be much quicker. It will be harder for sure. Right. But either way, I like this Turnabog selection, not because Vote could be able to continually get solo kills, but instead because it means that when you're really far ahead, you don't have to walk to the team fights. You can just show up and end up impacting them because you can ult to them and show up way ahead of everybody else. It's a great idea for this sort of mini meta that's developing in this set.
Yes, if you're the hunter that's stuck over here, Chernabog is the one that can take advantage of this. Used to be Apollo in the old days, but this is even better than that, right? Because you're slowing everyone, and you get there faster, and it doesn't use up a bunch of your mana. So really, it's even better than Across the Sky was. So it's a very nice pickup here for Vote, and getting a little bit ahead certainly won't hurt that.
First Blood actually ends up being a pretty big difference maker here for Pittsburgh Knights. They're up about 1,000 gold. That's because of the 3 Totem of Coups, the successful blue buff invade at level 1, and that solo kill. All kind of evens out to about that 900 gold number. But of course, some extra gold by way of doing things like this, pushing your opponent's wave underneath the tower, and that's really not going to happen in mid lane against Hurriwind, but certainly can against Variety and Ataraxia.
Yeah, one more reason I kind of like this nuance here in the middle lane is that another problem they had in Game 1 was that Adapting would get so close to killing, but not quite enough to close them out. I mean, they have the freest confirmation I can think of in the form of this new wall to clean up on the back end of those kills. So if maybe they're worried about people getting away with that last little bit, Zyrhoes can kind of cut that off.
I was initially thinking Discordia is a good selection here for Pittsburgh Knights, because if you want to get pressure in solo, giving Discordia passive to Achilles is a great way to do it.
Yes.
And it's good against AMC in some ways, because you can just strife him and he's got nowhere to go. He's got no way to get out of that route. So you've got good kill potential there. But once the Camazotz was locked in, I ended up liking this Nuwa pick a lot more, because you can't really do anything as a mage against Camazotz ult. You can't Aegis it because it's long enough duration. You can't run away from it because it's got so much range. But Nuwa ult can get you out of it. You'll still probably take 2 swings if he's right on top of you. You can probably get 2 swings off, but I don't think you can get all 3. And so you just take yourself out of the engagement long enough that it might buy your team time to come and peel for you.
Well, here's the adapting gank. This is the game 1 rewind, but now the question is, can Variety make it out of it? Just not able to hit him. He still had the bat out of hell, and that's enough. But see, that's exactly what I'm saying. There's the little bit of HP, and the fire shards makes the difference.
Yeah, Deathwalker uses Fatal Strike. I think he was expecting adapting to use his ult right away off the knock-up, and that would have put him in XQ range. But I think a bit of miscommunication, but in the end, it's all in the name of feeding Zyrhoes a little bit.
Well, Qvofred might be into trouble. He's too far forward. That's huge damage from Hurriwind, though, and a great taunt. Qvofred's pretty good at Smite. Hammer off the mark from Trixtank, and that means Pittsburgh Knights should be able to get out, though EmilZy stuck around.
Yeah.
They're going to go try and invade, but the buff's down.
Yeah, red buff invade's the right call. It's just a little bit later than Dignitas would have liked. Great turnaround taunt from Qvofred, as you mentioned, but a really nice stinger actually got beads, as well as with that taunt, of course, from Vote. It's good teamwork there between Hurry and Qvofred. You know, two new teammates, but looking pretty comfortable with one another.
They look really good together, don't they? The two of them have played very, very well throughout this set. Really, all 10 of our players, I feel, has. And now EmilZy's in some trouble. The Stinger back up. Deathbane came back up. He Cobra's Kisses back in. Still has ambush, so he's out of there. But EmilZy, very brave.
But again, another missed swarm after the Stinger for Hurriwind. It's happened in game 1 to him, and I think that would have been enough to get the kill there as well as it was here, in my mind. That red buff invade's still successful, though, and that's what's most important. But at the same time, Adapting's able to strip away not just blue, but back XP as well from Qvofred.
Important that that's done, and limit some of the options here, as you said, for the Erlong Shen. And now another gank onto Variety, but he has Bat out of Hell yet again, and that allows him to reposition. But they forced this one out defensively, and Qvofred was here all along to help anyway if more help was needed. Though Fatal Strike forced out just from that pin.
Good patience from Qvo. Doesn't want to try and force that fight too hard. Just get your win. Now neither solo laner has their ultimate, and that relieves some instant pressure on Variety.
EmilZy very confident in his ability to be able to juke away some of these hits coming out from Dignitas. So we've seen him get him away from Hurriwind a couple times throughout this set and get him out of some sticky situations, but we've also seen it hurt him sometimes, where he's a little bit too far forward, takes too much punish. Variety, though, should be dead this time. There's no way for him to get up out of the air. Zyrhoes is the one that closes out with the fire shards and an easy cleanup for the Knights.
Qvo did taunt Adapting to get his purification beads, but it's Hurriwind now in some trouble in the mid lane. He's still okay. Qvofred is not. Took enough damage there. What happened to him in that solo lane?
Yeah, Deathwalker and Adapting kept up the chase, apparently. They're able to hunt him down, and Trixtank didn't get there in time. I thought it was Dignitas who were going to be the ones with collapse potential there, but that was not the case. The Hobwa and the Achilles, way too much damage. And this is different from anything we've seen so far, where this aggression from the Knights in the early game has worked to the tune of 4 kills to 0 to 3,000 or so gold out in front. We haven't seen this happen yet.
And again, it's around Variety in the solo lane. That seems to be a matchup that Pittsburgh Knights like to exploit, is Camazotz up against this Achilles. And I think Variety, now with that Nuwa pressure as well, it's just so hard to end up getting away from everything that the enemy is going to be throwing at you.
And Vote hasn't even had to come all the way over here. He certainly could, if they feel like they need a little bit more to close this out. So you're right. If everyone else is already at the fight and you're seeing a little bit more help from these carries, then it's not. There's just not enough Variety can do to get away from all that by himself. He's going to need some punish from the rest of his team to make up for that heavy commitment. But it's such a safe commit from Knights that I don't know how you punish.
Ataraxia messing around with his purple buff alongside Trixtank, but Adapting threatened a rotation over, and that's enough to scare them off the buff. But another successful red buff invade. Hurriwind still a little bit behind, but Ataraxia ends up being okay in this lane despite getting soloed early on.
Well, an impressive fight on the right-hand side. Zyrhoes just barely gets away from Hurriwind, so he does end up falling. Though we should have a chance, if we can, to go back and take a look at how Qvofred ended up falling, because we weren't quite able to see it. It happened away from us, so we can get that one pulled up, we can see what happened. He comes back in the lane, and they're both here. He steps up into him. It's just too much damage.
Yeah, that was a bad idea. Okay, that makes sense. Just a bad idea by Qvofred. He knew adapting speeds were down. That's probably why he wanted to play aggressively, but Achilles' base damage is good.
Maybe he thought Trixtank would get there a little bit sooner and he'd have some backup. But either way, because he's there too soon, he ends up getting punished. Votes managed to wrap around, but EmilZy can't find the Cobra's Kiss. That means Qvofred does not get locked down and can make it out. Trixtank goes into Draconic Corruption and wants to look to push forward, but doesn't have a whole bunch of backup, but that's enough. Adapting, Crushing Wave, forced out.
Still no Purification Beads. You have to play it safe that Trix is going to hit that, because if you get chain CC'd from there, you're dying before you get another chance to use that ultimate. So, right idea from adapting, even if the ultimate, or the leap rather, missed from Trixtank.
Safe rather than sorry. And that really could have been a much better fight from the Knights, but again, EmilZy couldn't quite get into range to start that one off. Vote had managed to do a really nice rotation, I think kind of put him just underneath where Trixtank was, so they might not even have known that he was making that, or taking that pathing. But without that extra bit of CC, Qvofred was able to turtle on out of there, and everything ended up being okay.
Literally turtling, by the way.
Yeah.
I thought sometimes, it's like, I was like, well, he didn't really turtle, but he did turtle, so. Sorry. There was, right before this, there was like a 45-minute game, and then right after that, there was a 59-minute game.
Right.
So I'm already a little more frazzled, I would say.
A little more opened up, maybe, huh?
In some ways.
In some ways. As the Knights have so far had a good early game, and it's one that we haven't quite seen yet. We saw them with the same type of aggression in Game 1, but Dignitas were able to answer it with the kind of escapes that I think you don't get twice. And that's what we're seeing here. Some of those are ones that don't end up happening again. So, so far it's been all favor of the Knights, though it's not out of reach for Dignitas yet, and they've got this Double Hunter into Fafnir in the late game, a Camazotz for great damage, and some setup. So if they can hold on, this certainly still is fine for them.
Remember, they had a lead in Game 2 at the same time, though. I mean, I think both teams in Game 2 come away from that feeling like, oh, man, we nearly threw that game, or we did throw that game. The Pittsburgh Knights were in control in the early stages. They had a 5,000 gold lead.
Right.
Not that long into the game, and Dignitas ended up coming back and evening it up and had 2 Phoenixes down and all that kind of stuff. Hey, what's up? So Knights have had a lead that Dignitas has definitely come back from, and what Dignitas did really well with this composition in Game 1 is play objectives, is get Gold Furies and Pyromancers when that window presents itself.
Adapting and Deathwalker, they just want to kill variety. Deathwalker went in that time, and I don't know if Adapting was really all that down to dive, but he didn't really need any backup. Deathwalker got plenty of work done over there. Level 13 on this Achilles, and he's really caused problems for variety so far, with some help, of course, from Adapting and from Zyrhoes and even from Vote. So there's been a lot of help.
Well,
and EmilZy, yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's been a dedicated effort to shut down this Camazotz pick for sure, and it's a good one to shut down because it doesn't really provide that much when behind. It's not like, Achilles still has the execute. A character like Guan Yu still has heals, and Bologna still has CC. That's not really the case with Camazotz. He'll slow you, and that's kind of it. He just kind of stays alive most of the time, but when you're behind, especially, again, with this sort of strategy where you're camping solo and leaving Vote to do whatever he wants and get big, you're basically double hitting variety that not only is he behind, but Vote's ahead. And so that normal target that he'd be going for has that much of an easier time against him.
It'll be difficult, and as we already highlighted, Nuwa might have a slightly better chance than most at getting away. So the options really are diminishing for variety on who he spends his time on in these engagements. We talked about how Vote was able to get that solo kill on Ataraxia early and how he might be able to punish in duo lane, but that has not materialized. It's hard to keep a Chronos down, not like this Camazotz who's repeatedly under pressure from Adapting.
Blink in from Deathwalker that time, gets the ultimate, definitely does make Variety more vulnerable, but Variety does have a little bit of CDR with that Gladiator shield, so about even, I would say, on that trade. We'll see if Variety actually ends up getting punished for not having Bat Out of Hell for the next 90 seconds or so. Seems like Pittsburgh Knights have lost a bit of that kill potential, though, on the right-hand side. Variety now just has enough points in Devour and Vampire Bats where he's getting enough sustain where he doesn't get poked out before the fight even happens.
That's right, yeah, he's not going to get too punished. We can't say the same, though, for this Tier 1 tower. That one will fall to the pressure from Deathwalker, and now that safety valve for Variety's not quite there where he can hide under the Tier 1. So even with the sustain, it might not be enough as Adapting blinks over the wall, and Bat Out of Hell's not here. Crushing Wave and the Fatal Strike, that sets it up for a nice kill for Deathwalker.
Well, it's definitely not an even trade now because that's an easy kill for Pittsburgh Knights. Really a lot of pressure being put on the Variety in this game. 0-3. Qvo's been over to help clear blue buffs every once in a while, and that's kind of it from Dignitas. There has not been a dedicated counter gank effort, and again, all the time being spent by Adapting on the right-hand side. Maybe it's Chernobog's a hard character to gank because he just goes up and he can go over towards Variety and maybe end up surviving. But I feel like there's got to be something that these junglers can do to punish these hunters for just being able to sit in lane and farm.
I'm sorry the world's not fair, aggro. I'm sorry that mid lane's hard and Hunter isn't. I'm sorry.
It's messed up, man. We've only had like a year and a third
where you guys are really good.
where we actually get to play the game and have fun, man. It's not fair. Don't take it from us yet.
Yeah, let's get back to the roots.
No.
Let's get maybe something like a Hasted Katana back in there. That's what you want to see?
Triple splitting again? Anything but that.
It's a rough life sometimes with these mid laners out there, but you're right. I think there's room for some ganks into this duo lane to try and slow down some of this Hunter farm, especially if it's this much attention on the Variety, because as you said, it's not as if Qvo's been especially doing anything else with his time, right? So you could at least be maybe giving a chance for Ataraxia to win some 1v1s down the line. If there's beads that aren't available for vote, if his ultimate's not available, I think that in this situation where he's not particularly doing anything else, he doesn't have to successfully kill for his time to be well spent over the harassing vote. Just maybe make it easier on Ataraxia to get some pressure.
To be fair, Ataraxia now has a level lead in
That's
that
good.
lane, so it's not like he's been under constant siege or anything like that. It's just maybe you can get him really far ahead or just stop vote from being a level 18 Chernobog at 17 minutes.
Well, it's the Knights who are looking to start up this Gold Fear, and it's already been burned. Variety and Qvofred won't make it there in time. In fact, Hurriwind in duress on the back end of the fight. The Knights secure the objective. Deathwalker takes down Hurriwind, and Variety also low. He's already in Bat Out of Hell. That's a good stun from Trix, but it doesn't stop Adapting, who just misses. Over the top, though, comes some help. Zyrhoes finds Ataraxia. It's EmilZy who takes down Variety, and all of a sudden, the Knights have a commanding lead here in this game. Joe Bro, before this started, gave us the 23 minutes on this game.
There's
no chance that that's true, right?
There's
no chance.
No, but already Pittsburgh Knights doing much better about pushing a lead. They get Deathwalker ahead and they rotate him in towards the fight early and get him involved, and he just gets all over Hurriwind. And what is Hurriwind ever supposed to do from that position?
Well, the Fire Giant now being considered, and Qvofred is going to have to walk right past it. Zyrhoes finds that kill, and they can still hold on to this objective, though they have Adapting chasing the kill instead. Trixtank could try and hammer over the wall. Oh. The Knights just barely secure that one. I think that's closer than it had to be as Vote cleans up the 10th kill of the game.
And this is the position where this feels like the right time to suicide for the Fire Giant.
Yes.
Like, you are so far behind now as Team Dignitas that, yes, it is the right call to go for the suicide steal from there for Trixtank. Doesn't get it, was close. I've got no problem with him trying.
What are we, some kind of suicide squad?
Trixtank as he's jumping in.
Never a better line uttered in Will Smith's illustrious career than that one.
Hey, man, he's only got the script in front of him. What's he supposed to say? Not the line?
That's true. He doesn't have any options.
Don't hate on my mans.
You know who else hasn't had very many options?
Who's that?
My man Variety.
So true.
Has been getting sad on over here in the solo lane to the tune of now level 15 behind everyone else really on the side of Pittsburgh Knights. He's even with EmilZy.
Yeah, that's not what you're looking for. Is your solo laner the same level as the enemy support and in a level 17 new
and on a Camazotz for what
already.
It's worth.
Yeah, I think it's just time to move away from this Camazotz pick for Dignitas. I think they won, not in spite of it in game number 1, but in spite of a rough laning phase for sure. And now it doesn't look like you're going to get the option to end up with a team fighting phase here for Dignitas. It's looking pretty dire already. So maybe it's time to switch it up and go back. I mean, Bologna was open here, Finch.
Right.
And he played so well on it. I'm surprised they didn't go to it.
I'm surprised too. Dignitas had to try and force down the tier 1 and right to at least get something, but that's the tier 2 tower in mid and duo, and the Life of Variety all in trade. Certainly not going to come up worth this time. The rest of the Knights now surging into the mid lane. Phoenix, Deathwalker, Fatal Strikes just to reposition, but Trixtank ready to try and turn things around. They put no damage onto this Phoenix for what it's worth. and with Draconic Corruption, they can at least try and defend.
Vote had already used the ultimate just to get the slow and see if he wanted to engage. Jump off the mark. Trixtank getting crushed by all of Pittsburgh Knights. 12-0 so far in this game. Mid lane Phoenix only a formality from here.
They're surging. I don't know if they can go all the way in for the end just yet, especially with how low EmilZy is this game. But finally, this early pressure has started to net some success for the Knights, because so far Dignitas has done a really good job answering it in games 1 and 2. But this time with that Nuwa, I really think that was the final piece that they needed to make this early pressure really work out for them. The Fire Shards, I mean, you truly, unless you have Aegis, can't do anything about it.
You're holding that. And Variety held it a lot so far this game.
5 times. I can be accurate about it.
Yeah, you sure can. I really do think it's as simple as change the solo lane pick here, let Variety have a little bit more pressure. Also start at blue instead of in lane.
Right.
In this game, I'm not saying that's what they need to do in game 4 here, but in this game, it's really just a couple things that went wrong that ended up costing Dignitas in this game.
And I think you're right to point out the Camazotz. That's higher up on the chain of events, I think, right? The Nuwa is only the linchpin in securing the kills onto this Camazotz that we can pressure out, right? So
right.
The Camazotz probably is slightly higher up in the link of things that might not have gone correct for them. And this is what we mean when we talk about how you just can't do much when you're behind, and everyone's always like, well, everyone's bad when they're behind, but some people are worse. Like,
yes.
Unbots is definitely still going to fear no evil you, no matter what's going on in the game. And Variety can't even provide that level for the team right now. He's a bit of a sitting duck. And we saw them grab him underneath that mid-Phoenix without any trouble.
Adapting is all by himself here, and the trap may have been sprung. No blink. Still has the ultimate. Variety going to try and chase him down. This new ultimate will let him know just how many people are here. Variety probably won't end up winning this trade all by himself. He needs help from Qvofred, and he gets it.
Right side
the
Phoenix.
Right side Phoenix is dead.
That's what they're going to trade out for this. 2 members there chasing down Adapting, while the right side Phoenix gets burned. And I think Adapting certainly did not want to die there, but he's okay with this team getting a Phoenix on the back of all that.
Fire Giant's coming up fairly soon. Dignitas still down 15,000. Qvofred looping on the opposition, and it's only the carries left. No protection here from any frontliners.
Qvofred is now trying to lock down Vote. Is able to make it through that stun with the use of the beads, but Vote has so much damage. Hammer off the mark, but so is some of Vote's damage as well. So Trixtank can keep up the chase. Draconic Corruption coming out, and now Vote and Zyrhoes really need to get out of here because EmilZy's being locked down. This could be some trouble. A good Aegis from Zyrhoes means a lot of damage, but Ataraxia burns him.
Another execute for Deathwalker. That one doesn't land, but Variety still goes down. Vote ends up dying to the bees as Ataraxia really wanted to ensure that kill and has thrown his own life away in order to secure it potentially. Deathwalker's out of buttons, but EmilZy certainly isn't. Ataraxia will take him on a wild ride for a little bit.
That will certainly end in his death.
That will certainly end in his death.
Yeah, no other really way for that to go. The Knights do end up winning that fight, though. It seemed like one that maybe they shouldn't even had to be in. It does guarantee you, unfortunately, though, that the prophecy of Joe Bro shall not be written. Unfortunate.
Great effort by Joe Bro, though. You got to give him credit where it's due.
I'll give him some credit for this early game, at least going in one team's favor. I wouldn't have guessed that it would look like this.
All right, who had more to do with Pittsburgh Knights' early lead? Nuwa or Joe Bro?
Do you want the real answer?
Yes.
Nuwa.
Unlucky.
Joe Bro saw it, though. He was like, who's that guy in Thor? Idris Elba's character who can like kind of see everything that's going on.
Heimdallr?
Yeah, he's that guy. Yeah, Joe was that guy for us. Thanks, Joe. You're the Idris Elba of the situation. And I guess you're Joel McHale, apparently. So.
Wow. You're just tossing compliments left and right out of your face. All of a sudden, we got Idris Elba and Joel McHale around the studios.
Yeah, Finch, extremely not a bully, by the way.
If you say so.
Oh, there's a lot of nice stuff on the record now, so what can you do? That's the Fire Giant under siege by the Knights. Trixtank's the only one that's nearby for now. Though his team's around, do you want to see them come out and try and stop this, or are they forced to just wait it out?
I mean, you know Aegis is down for Zyrhoes and Vote. Are you going to get a better fight than this if you're Dignitas? I'm not sure you do. This might be your best fight here.
Yeah.
Fire Giant's now enhanced as well.
Right, so it's not nearly as easy for them to just burn it.
You have a Primal Fury, they don't. Yeah, I kind of like this defense option, actually.
Dignitas like it too. EmilZy goes for Qvofred to start things off. Remember, they knew he didn't have beads, but they'll be back in 15 seconds. Variety in some trouble as well. But EmilZy can't take him by himself. Deathwalker zones out a couple, and EmilZy keeps up the chase. This is too much, and he takes some poke for the trouble. Now rooted as well, but Deathwalker, the big brother, is here to stop things. In fact, Vote wants to come in as well. Chernobog committed.
Okay, so overall, about even, I would say, but curious overall. I'm trying to, like, parse who wins that.
Yeah, I'm just sorry you literally hummed. There's like a book.
Well, yesterday I had a blanket on in the middle of the day. I'm getting old out here, Finch. I'm trying my best.
That's all you can do at some point. As the Fire Giant unleashed yet again, Variety is made to the target early on as Deathwalker shrugs off quite a bit of damage coming out from Dignitas and takes it no problem. Remember, there are fire minions over here on the right, so Dignitas have to keep finding a way over there to defending those waves as their Phoenix is just about to respawn.
Left side Phoenix also might be in some trouble soon for Dignitas as a big wave grouping on that left-hand side. Dig has a lot of stuff in the air right now. They're juggling a lot of different balls, but they're doing a pretty decent job of it.
Yes.
So far.
The Knights have not been able to punish just yet. They haven't been able to complete this Fire Giant. And this is when it's about the hardest point, right? Right when it switches to enhance. So it makes some sense that they're having trouble because your strength relative to it is at that point where it's toughest. But we'll see, as now they look for variety and force out the bat of hell.
EmilZy still just zoning with presence alone. Pittsburgh Knights really want to take fights and not just go for the objective, but Dignitas not getting goaded into these engagements, instead waiting for Fire Giant to be the sixth man wearing their colors.
Well, it's good to see Dignitas are just as patient on this defense as they are sometimes on offense, and it's to their betterment, at least for now. As long as the Knights don't force this, as now they've begun to. Deathwalker hiding inside the fog has made it past Trixtank, but there's nothing there for him. He'll instead come back to keep the Fafnir away.
Vote's getting pretty low from this Fire Giant, though. He's in a lot of trouble, actually. He gets stunned, has to use both relics just to survive.
And Trixtank is still here.
He's dead.
Qvofred finds him, and Vote ends up going down.
Dignitas
grab the Fire Giant, and Qvofred gets the double kill. Pittsburgh Knights, after all that time, still couldn't do it correctly. And now they can surge down the Deathwalker. Variety shuts him down. A little bit of revenge going the way of the solo laner. And all of a sudden, somehow, things have turned back around.
Pittsburgh Knights are choking on the snack wrap they got at the gas station right now, man. They are in serious trouble all of a sudden. Finch has an enhanced Fire Giant for 5 members of Dignitas that have a Fafnir and a Kronos on their side.
It's so much damage they're able to do these structures. EmilZy is trying to make his way past Variety
They're gonna
to slow
end the
down this
game.
push, but the mid Phoenix is going down,
way.
and Dignitas refused to blink. 28 minutes on the clock, and they're here to punish Pittsburgh Knights. The game was all theirs, and they couldn't figure it out.
Wow.
Ataraxia popping as well. That's the game for Dig.
What an unbelievable comeback. You see it sometimes in these... You see it in boxing where one boxer's really just taking it to the other dude, but he lets his guard down just a little bit, and one good punch is all it takes to knock you out. And that's what happens there to Pittsburgh Knights. Vote just... I just don't know why he's the one tanking in that position. I don't know where EmilZy was necessarily, but EmilZy's just got to be the one to be taking those Fire Giant shots. Vote takes 75% of his health from Enhanced Fire Giant, and he ends up getting insta-killed in the fight. Dignitas get the Fire Giant, and that's the big one, is whoever secured it for Dig. If Pittsburgh Knights lose the fight but still get fire, there's no chance they lose the game from that position. But somehow, some way, Dignitas just surprise KO Pittsburgh Knights.
And it really feels like to me that this is in Dignitas' favor that they made that happen. I don't want to say so much that it was a gift, but it's how well they played that defense. Like we said, they had so many balls in the air, right? They had to worry about their left side Phoenix, the right side was where the actual fire minions were, and they had to keep all of that pushed out. And they had to make sure that Dignitas couldn't, or Knights couldn't feel comfortable getting the objective. They managed to do it all. That's crazy.
But still, I feel like Pittsburgh Knights just leave the door open too much, Finch. I mean, yes, Dignitas does a good job on the defense, but it shouldn't matter how good the defense is when you're up by that much gold. And some of it is they kind of waited around, and Enhanced Fire Giant, it doesn't happen until 25 minutes. I think they had a small window where maybe they can try and force it, get the Fire Giant when it's still in its base form. I don't know. I mean, I know the objective's really tough, but Pittsburgh Knights, I think you still shouldn't lose from that position very, very often. That was that was a tough one to lose for the Pittsburgh Knights.
Yeah, it was definitely rough. And the Enhanced Fire Giant is, like you said, much more difficult to take. And it's not something you can do for free. I think that's become more and more clear to our pros at this point, right?
Yes.
That it's just not something that you can easily do. It has to be leashed correctly, DPS'd correctly. Your zoning has to be perfect too. And Dignitas kind of kept saying, all right, how good at this are you guys? Can you guys do it? And they kept pushing them to that question.
Man, I really want to watch it again because I just don't know where EmilZy is during that fight.
That's twice we've thought that, by the way,
exactly.
In critical team fights in the set.
Why isn't he tanking that? Deathwalker's zoning, sure. He does a decent enough job, I suppose, but really good flank route from Qvofred again. If Vote's able to get out of that fight,
that changes a lot.
That changes a whole different. It's a whole different dynamic, right? Because you've got 3 people on the defense instead of just 2. I think that Qvo's rotation was great, but so EmilZy wasn't stopping that flank. I just don't know where you just in Season 6 you cannot have a carry tank the Enhanced Fire Giant.
Yeah.
You just can't. It just does too much damage.
It does entirely too much. We saw it happen at a vote. My poor guy had to use everything just to make it back across that threshold, right? That's another part that can be so punishing is once you go, okay, well, maybe we did make a mistake, you can't even leave for free anymore.
And not only that, it's not just the fact that it's taking a lot of damage. Remember how low it got, and if Vote's the one tanking it, that's shutting down his DPS by a lot. So it's twofold why your carries really shouldn't be tanking that objective.
And they do end up getting punished for it on the back end of that one. But that's the end of game number 3. Now the question becomes, how do the Knights recover from that loss? That's
Good luck.
A tough loss to take.
Yeah.
Maybe the desk has some ideas. Let's get it back over to them.
I've got a couple of ideas of what might have went wrong there for Pittsburgh Knights, but I'll go ahead and get things started with that last little bit on that Fire Giant. It was just such a steep investment from Pittsburgh Knights. They didn't really have many options, I feel, because once you get that Enhanced Fire Giant down to that 20-30% HP threshold, you don't really have much other options other than to full commit. Adapting invested that Crushing Wave, but unfortunately it just fell short for him. And still, the steal that happened from Dignitas following after aggro was so right in that statement that as long as Pittsburgh Knights have been able to actually confirm the Fire Giant, they definitely probably wouldn't have wound up actually losing the match. But it's just so unforgiving when you're dealing with these double hunter compositions and the Fafnir as well. I just don't really think that Dignitas had much of a reason to do anything else except barrel down that mid lane. And for as much efforts as Pittsburgh Knights tried to do to try and hold on to their Titan room, it's just so impossible, I feel, to try and prevent a late game Chronos, a late game Amuz and Cobb, and the entirety of Dignitas from just steamrolling through that Titan room. So really fantastically played. The patience as well from Dignitas is something to be very well noted because I don't think that Pittsburgh Knights were really anticipating that Vote would be picked off in the backline there. The fact that Trixtank was able to work his way in and find that backline opportunity to look to punish Vote and force out those relics, that gave the opening for Qvofred to then finalize the punishment. And I believe it or not, guys, I am running a little bit out of breath here, but there was a lot to recap of that team fight, and I can't stress it enough, man. Dignitas, they just found their moment, and that's kind of what it all boils down to. I think that sometimes you just have to play the patience game, and even if you're getting smacked for 20-something minutes, at the end of the day, Dignitas still keeping that mental game strong and prevailing.
I mean, that's really what the name of the game is here. When you're looking at these longer engagements, you got to understand, last game number 2 went 55 minutes. Despite the fact that there was a huge lead at just 20 here and pre-20 Fire Giant, you still got to be ready to take the opportunity if it should present itself. It's exactly what we see, and that's why Dignitas were able to get the win.
And I don't think that is an easy loss for Pittsburgh Knights to take. When you're in control for the vast majority of the match and then for everything to just crumble so rapidly, I understand that Pittsburgh Knights, they really wanted that Fire Giant. I still feel as though they probably could have kept playing the tiptoe game a little bit longer. It really did feel like a game of footsie between the two teams. Pittsburgh Knights didn't want to all in on Enhanced Fire Giant, and Dignitas certainly did not want to try and approach them before that Enhanced Fire Giant became the effective 6-man for them.
Yeah, it happens quite a frequent amount of times, watching these teams kind of throw the games when it comes down to the big-time objectives, but this was very different. You heard the casters kind of say, I don't want to take it away from Team Dignitas, but they were certainly given an opportunity, and really the thing that separates the great teams from the good teams is taking advantage of that opportunity. You know, Tully always says that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Well, you've got to have that preparation to really be handed that situation and turn that into a victory. It's a very interesting situation.
What I really want to figure out next, though, is the direction that Pittsburgh Knights heads from here, because I don't think that there was anything wrong with their Game 3 strategy. I think that it was just one team fight that spiraled out of control for Pittsburgh Knights, and the capitalization from Dignitas was just overwhelming.
Yeah, Dignitas was able to really confirm this one. It was interesting to watch the move away from the Jorm mid. How do you think that really handled things as a big picture situation?
I think that the new wall was actually working out incredibly well for Zyrhoes, because he had a lot of cleanup factors still coming into play. It was almost the same effect as the Jorm as well, where Deathwalker at times would even try to utilize that fog to stay invisible. And again, I have to go back to that
stealth.
Fire Giant, because Deathwalker almost got to Dignitas' backline before Trixtank realized that Vote was taking way too much damage from that enhanced Fire Giant. And it was just Trix being able to spot out and make that call that allowed for the rest of Dignitas to just fall into effect.
Is enhanced Fire Giant, and this is exactly what we're looking at. See, Knights just have control of it, adapting, looking for the crushing wave to seal the deal, but Trixtank jumps in there, variety Qvofred. There's also a whole bunch of Dignitas going on. And, well, there was a whole bunch of Dignitas after the fact as well, taking the victory here. And that leads me right into my next question. Is the enhanced Fire Giant a trap?
It's starting to feel like it. I mean, I've already had like my fair share of talks with pros from behind the scenes and everything like that. And I think the one thing that a lot of pros seem to be saying is that Enhanced Fire Giant feels impossible to go after sometimes, because you want to commit to the objective, but you don't want to end up like Pittsburgh Knights did, for example, where you have one little spill of a team fight, and even though it's only 26, 27 minutes into the match, the death timers are still long enough by then, because you're above the 40-second mark, and it takes 2 seconds for these hunters to shred the towers. So that is the risk versus reward scenario. But if you get that enhanced Fire Giant, the collapse that you can do is just so favorable that it's not a trap, but it's not ideal either.
It's tough. Risk versus reward. That's every decision, isn't it?